All right, so hey there, everybody. Andrew King here. I'm the editor of Canadian Musician, and thanks for joining us for our latest free webinar from NWC Webinars presented by Canadian Musician. You're here for creating a killer artist website, and in just a moment, I'm going to introduce Dave Cool. He is our guest presenter, the Director of Artist and Industry Outreach with bandzoogle.com. I should mention at the outset here, so we're going to be talking about best practices for your website, regardless of which platform or service you're using. But to say at the outset here, check out bandzoogle.com. They have a number of really helpful designs and platforms that will basically take a lot of what Dave's going to be talking about today and build it into their products. So you've got sort of a one-stop solution. Catered to musicians and artists. So check them out. But beyond that, what we're going to be talking about is pretty general and far-reaching. Before we get started, a few housekeeping tips. So the sessions, we're aiming for about an hour here, and there's going to be 2 question periods. About halfway through, we're going to stop, do a short little Q&A, basically just taking any questions that are particularly timely or relevant to something that Dave has already covered. Rest assured, though, if we don't get to yours in that initial handful, we've got a longer Q&A at the end of the session, and we can be a bit more wide-reaching with that. So fret not. You can ask your questions in the interface there. You can just submit them, and I'll be fielding those for Dave. To start off, I guess we're going to ask a question. I'm going to start up a poll here. We're basically just looking to see the makeup of our audience, not so much so that we can steer today's session, but just to better inform the future webinars that we bring you. nwcwebinars.com is the home base for all of those. You can register for our next one. We're going to be talking about capitalizing on music conferences at the end of March. So NWC webinars for that, CMW, ECMA, South by, all right around the corner. And we want to help you make the most of your investment if you're going to such events. I'll share these results with you momentarily, but it looks like the majority of our attendees are performing and recording artists, which I guess makes a lot of sense because we're helping you create a killer site. But to the 20% or so behind the scenes industry professionals, I'm sure you'll be able to take away a lot here that will help you moving forward. Last but not least, at the end of the session here, we're going to throw up a link for our sister company, musicbooksplus.com, to a few additional titles that basically complementary subjects, some books that will help you expand on what we've spoken about today. There's also some tips there to make the most of your webinar experience. And in the handouts tab, by joining us live, you're eligible to grab some of these free resources. We've got handouts, some articles that we've done in Canadian Musician, not so much talking about your .com website, but more your digital marketing strategy, social media presence. So some complementary things to your .com. And that's enough for me. Let's close the poll here. I'll just show you the results really quickly. So a little over half are performing recording artists. You can see a good segment of music industry professionals, some behind the scenes songwriters, and some folks that are joining us from other arms of the industry. We appreciate it. And let's get rolling here. Okay. So this is creating a killer artist website. My computer is being a bit slow, but let's roll. As I mentioned, I'm Andrew King with Canadian Musician Magazine. Dave Cool is here, Director of Artist and Industry Outreach with bandzoogle.com. Some info here just about how they can help you build the site in the lines of what we're going to be talking about. Sell your stuff commission free. He has spoken on dozens of panels. We had a chance to connect at Canadian Music Week 2016. Actually, Dave's one of the first industry professionals that I had the pleasure of meeting and working with when I got the job at Canadian Musician back in the standalone record days. So it's very cool. Coming full circle. Without further ado, Dave, thanks a ton for joining us. Let's kick things off here. Your website is your hub. And we've got a few reasons here of why you want to drive your fans to your .com, how your .com kind of plays an integral role in your online presence alongside your social media properties, email lists, etc. But here we go. 4 reasons to drive fans to your website. And Dave, mind unpacking these a bit for us?
Sure, no problem. And it's great to be here, Andrew. I appreciate the invite, and hello, everyone listening. Yeah, so it's a question that comes up often for musicians that we speak to is, in the age of free social media, why do you still need your own proper .com website? And it's a valid question, but there are some very good reasons why you still need a website. Primarily is that you own the address. You own that little slice of the internet. So if there's anyone listening who's old enough, I know I am, that remembers when MySpace was the big social media site. A lot of bands, spent a lot of time building up their fan base on MySpace, and then seemingly overnight, MySpace wasn't cool anymore. It was kind of broken, not working that well anymore. And there was no, copy my fans from MySpace to Facebook. You really had to start over. And so by having your own .com, you own that slice of the internet, and your fans will always the fans in the industry will always be able to find you there. So that's the first point. You own the experience. So Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram are all great tools, and they have their place in your overall marketing strategy, of course, and they're very important. However, you don't really own the experience when someone goes to your profile. They're all designed the same way, and there's obviously reasons for that. And one would argue that MySpace's downfall had somewhat to do with their customization options. But so with your website, you can really design it how you want, brand it to match, your music, and you can really give fans the information and the experience that you want them to have once they land on your site, because you have complete control over that.
Mhm.
Um, this third point may be maybe not the most important, but it's up there. Owning your data. So data has become somewhat of a new currency for musicians and record labels and managers and bookers. And so the data that you collect through your website, like um, how many people are obviously visiting your website is important to know. It always feels nice, but more importantly, how did they get there? What did they search for? What link brought them there? Where do they live? And so these types of data points can really help you plan your marketing campaigns, and in many cases help you book tours and shows. If you can show a booker at a venue that you have, X thousand fans in their city, and you can back it up with hard data, that's going to open up a lot of doors. And I've seen it firsthand at a Music Managers Forum Canada roundtable a few years ago, where an artist manager was part of the roundtable with a promoter from Australia, and that artist manager just whipped out his laptop, went into the back end of the band that he was managing, their website, and showed, hey, we get this much traffic from Brisbane, Australia. We need to talk. And they immediately left the table and went to go talk. So that's the power of data. It can really help you open doors. And in terms of that last point, earning money, I mean, if you're playing music with the goal to monetize and make a career of it, then selling direct to your fans through your website is important, because you'll make more money. I mean, it feels great to get those sales reports from iTunes and Amazon and other stores, CD Baby, things like that. But they're all taking a cut of those sales. And getting back to the data point, iTunes is not sharing data with you. They're not sharing the email addresses of those customers. That those are their customers. What you want to do is drive the sales to your website, where you get more of the money. And you mentioned in the intro, like Ben Zugel's commission-free sales, and there's services like Bandcamp where they take a small cut and give you the full data, like the email address, and so you can follow up with those fans over the long term, which I think probably segues into the next slide. I'm getting ahead of myself, but earning more money and getting that data are super important. So yeah, that brings us to mailing lists.
Bingo. Oh, let's keep the train rolling here, and yeah, mailing list kind of a subsection of your website, but an important component, especially when you're talking about making sales directly from your platform. So let's chat about this, and then we can roll back into the website itself.
Sure, yeah. So we, like you said, like we really see the website and mailing list going hand in hand. Like we see your website as your hub online, and all these other social media platforms are kind of your spokes, and you really want to use those social profiles to drive traffic and drive fans to your website, so you can collect that data. And part of that is collecting the data through your mailing list. And mailing lists might sound a bit like an old school marketing tactic, um, but they are in our opinion, the most powerful marketing tool that musicians have. And the reasons for that is that you own it. So you own that database of fans. MySpace can disappear, Facebook can disappear, Twitter can disappear. If you have a solid mailing list, you own that database. So let's say you're using MailChimp for your mailing list. You can download that database, and let's say you're going to build a website with Bandzoogle, upload it to our mailing list system, use our mailing list. If you decide to change, you can download the database, take it with you. You own that database. So that's extremely important. Second point is if someone gives you their email address, especially these days, where people are really wary of spam and getting too many emails. If I give my email address to a band, it's because I want to hear from them. I want to know when their new album is coming out. I want to know when they're going on tour. So I want to know about their career. So it's really the ultimate permission marketing, which is, I think, a Seth Godin term. Best way to sell. So this is really important. So a lot of musicians and artists focus so much of their time on social media. And again, super important to connect with fans, find new fans, engage with your fans. However, people generally aren't on social media to shop. They're there to hang out, look at stupid memes, and talk to their friends. They're not really there to shop for things. Whereas with a mailing list, if you send a direct email to a database of fans that have signed up voluntarily, you should never add people who haven't. That's a very important point. Never add people that haven't signed up to your list. If you send them a dedicated email blast saying, "Hey, my new album is out. Click here to buy," you are going to have so much more success with that than shouting on Twitter for, a month. And there was a study released last year by a marketing firm that measured sales on social media platforms versus dedicated email blasts. And the study showed that email was 40 times more effective as Facebook and Twitter combined when it came to strictly monetizing. So very important tool. And if you don't have a mailing list and you're listening to this, please start one.
All right on. That is a staggering figure, 40 times more effective than the two major platforms combined. Yeah, well, let's keep rolling here. So back to the .com, and yeah, rest assured, we're going to be getting into specific design elements in the second half. We just really want to set the stage here, and yeah, just kind of give you an all-encompassing look at the importance of having not just a good website, but a website at all. So yeah, let's keep rolling. The three groups of people that you are targeting with your site, and we break these down a bit.
Yeah, so when you're putting together a site, or if you're thinking of redoing your website, you have to think about these three categories of people that are going to be visiting your site. And you have potential fans, you have your current fans who already know you, and then you have industry and media, and they all have very different needs. So an example of a potential fan would be someone, let's say, you mentioned, Andrew, that you guys are doing a webinar on getting the most out of conferences, which is super important. Conferences can be a great thing, but they're also an investment of time and money. So let's say you're showcasing at a conference. Let's say you have a showcase slot at CMW. Someone might be going to that venue that night to see a band that's playing after you, but they might check out your website to see, is it worth showing up a bit early to see another band on the bill? So your website really has to speak to the needs of a potential fan, someone who doesn't really know you very well. Your current fans are going to be checking out your website for different reasons. They already know who you are, so they're going to want to know what's new. And is there any new merch? Is there anything, where are you playing next? That kind of thing. And then industry and media, so that could be podcasters, bloggers, magazines, newspaper journalists, bookers, festival bookers, venue bookers, managers, agents, labels, that kind of thing. They have very different needs as well, and so you have to organize the content on your website so that all of three categories of these visitors can quickly find the information that they're looking for, because they're all going to click in a different place first, guaranteed. So you really have to make it super clear.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. And here we go. We're just going to kind of unpack this even more and look at some of those components of the site that are going to appeal to those three different categories. And so you can see some of the overlap and kind of decide well, this will all go towards helping you logically organize your site and the experience. So yeah, we started last time with potential fans. Great example with CMW, by the way, because I am that exact person that I'm trying to find if I can piggyback seeing a new band on the back of one I know, then kind of like hitting two birds with one stone. But I digress. Potential fans.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. And so potential fans are going to know what are you all about? What's your story? Who are you? You're going to want to put your best song, your best video right up front, right on the homepage when someone lands on your site. And if they're curious enough about who you are, again, hammering down this point on mailing list, try to get them on your mailing list with some kind of, the standard offer is a free download. Personally, I think it's not enough anymore. I think that you really have to think about exclusivity. So we have some Bandzoob members who offer older albums, like complete albums, in exchange for an email address to sign up to their mailing list. They offer exclusive live EPs or something exclusive that you can't find anywhere else. But again, just trying to entice people to get on that mailing list.
Bingo. Yeah, current fans, folks that are coming because they already know and like you.
Yeah, exactly. So they already know your story. They already know who you are. So they're going to want to know what's new. A great way to do that is through blogging. Blogging is also great for search engine optimization. And your photo galleries, you can embed your Twitter feed, your Instagram feed, so they can quickly see your latest activity. And these are people who probably already own your music, so they may want to see like, is there new merch, package deals? Are you crowdfunding? So your current fans, the ones that already know you, are really going to be the life force behind any kind of crowdfunding campaign. And again, if they're not on your mailing list, they really should be, and so you should try to capture them as well while they're on your website.
Bingo. And then I guess, yeah, you're kind of preaching to the choir a bit here with me, but no, it's good for people to know. So the industry meet, I guess both of us actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I used to book a couple of venues up here in Montreal, and you know, the way I browsed artist websites was very different. Industry and media, they want to know what's unique about you, what's different about you, what have you accomplished. Again, you want to put your best stuff forward. So obviously creating some kind of EPK or digital press kit page is the easiest way to accomplish this on a website, because then they can just click on that section and get all the information they need, which is they want to know, they want to see your bio, putting high-res photos, high-quality images, different formats, different black and white color, horizontal, vertical. You never know. Like, the easier you can make their lives to cover you, to do a review, the better. So having all of that in one place, your music, latest videos, press quotes, of course, contact information, career highlights, contact info, you can have it right there on the press kit page just to make it easier. If you have a publicist, obviously to put their contact information if they want to contact. I know some people in the media who prefer to deal with publicists, others just want to hear straight from the band. So having both is probably not a bad idea. And in terms of press quotes, one thing I will mention is the tendency is very much to just put a bunch of text of like reviews and quotes, which is great. That's definitely a very good first step. But what you can do to augment that is to make it a little bit more visual. And a little anecdote, I was doing a website review for someone at the ASCAP Expo in Los Angeles last year, and they had this really long press kit page, and there were just a ton of reviews. And so when you landed on it, like, you just saw just so much text. And had I not been reviewing the website, I wouldn't have really looked that closely. But because I was reviewing the website, I decided to read through the reviews. And I mean, there's Billboard and Pitchfork and all these major media outlets. And I was like, you should really add the logo of the media outlet, and then a quick quote and then a link to the full article, rather than putting it all in text, because someone landing on that page may not appreciate the different media outlets, and some of them are really, pretty big media outlets. So making it visual, making it pop, making it stand out in some way so that someone can get a really quick snapshot of like, oh, this person's been reviewed by some of the top, music media in the world. that sets a tone, um, for your career when someone's landing on that page.
Mhm. Um, quick question, and this is me asking. So I can
Mhm.
think of a few artists who, on their site, openly link to an EPK or press materials. It's called different things, but where you can go there, where anyone can access and download high-res images, see the bio or one sheet, high-res album art, etc. And then I know some artist sites as well where they have all that set up, but they will either have it password protected or just not publicly listed. So they have to actually send you the link. I'm just wondering if, in your opinion, one approach is more effective than the other. Is there any potential harm, or can it be a hindrance to just publicly have those press materials accessible from your main page?
So personally, I think it should always be publicly accessible. I think you never know who's going to be landing on your site, and you want to put all that information up front. Um, I do understand, and in our platform, you can password protect pages, and we have a lot of members who do that for their press kits. And I do understand that, and especially if you're going to include on that press kit page full album downloads for free, so the media can review the album,
Yeah.
then yes, password protecting might not be a bad idea. And it's sort of a compromise could be, having a publicly accessible press kit page and then having a note saying if you're a member of the media and would like, a full download of music, you know, click here to contact us, and then you send them to a password protected page for those that are interested, if they're doing it, especially for album reviews and things like that. So I totally understand wanting to password protect some of that content, obviously, but I think some of it really should be upfront and accessible to anyone that lands on the site.
Oh, right on. No, appreciate that. I'm in that camp as well. Like you say, you never know who's coming, and there have been times where, just by the nature of publishing and media, where you're after something instantaneous, and if you can't get your hands on it simply, it's off to the next thing. So yeah, there's some artists that have benefited from having that there. So yeah, like I said before, I'll just preface it. As soon as we wrap up this short question period here, we're going to be getting into the look, the layout of your site, the actual design elements, which is why I'm sure a few of you came. But yeah, feel free. Let's fire some questions. Again, you can send them via text in your interface there. There are a few good ones here to put in front of Dave. I've got to think, and I know you've done this presentation before at some high profile events. This is probably, if I'm onto something, the most common question you get. So hoping you've got something in your back pocket. And I might throw some in there as well. But what are examples of good artist websites?
Yeah. Well, uh, the easiest way for me to answer that would be is somewhat shameless self promotion. Would be to go to bandzoogle.com, and we have an examples section. That's one of our main menu items, and you can go and see a variety from all different genres and styles and artists from around the world. All the examples we put up there are, sites that are built beautifully and follow, these best practices. We also have a blog category. Where we feature beautiful band websites, and so there's just every week we talk about them. So for now, I would say check out Tyler Keeley, who's a singer-songwriter based in Ottawa. He's one of our members, and he has a great website. It always looks good. There's a guy named John Hart in the UK, John Hart Music. His website always looks great. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of examples out there, but those are the two that kind of come front of mind.
Oh, right on. Yeah, if I can throw one in there too. And I've just realized that he's got a new album on the way, so I'm not sure if it's changed for this cycle. But Joel Plaskett,
Awesome.
well-known Canadian troubadour. I always liked his site. The aesthetic was changed to match each album cycle, but it always suited his brand. I mean, sometimes it was very kind of busy looking, but at the same time, if you know Joel, if you've seen his studio or album work, that kind of fits the aesthetic of his brand. And just a side note too, he's one of the people that I know have all of the press materials accessible from the main page. And what's brilliant is that on there too, he includes very high res files of show posters for whatever tour he's on, basically enabling his fans if they feel so inclined to access those materials and essentially become his street team if their shows come into his area, which I've got to think has worked well for him. I should say too, Dave. I'm gonna throw some questions at you. Some of these are really good. As they say, a wise man doesn't have all the answers, but knows where to find them. So if we stump you, rest assured that I will take it upon myself to answer people's questions because this one's pretty technical. But let's see what
Yep.
we can do. Yeah, someone wants to know how can a webmaster amalgamate site sales, direct music sales from their .com in PayPal to adhere to SoundScan's rules so that they can be recognized for chart positions, total album sales, etc., which go a long way for funding opportunities and the like.
It's an excellent question. I know on our platform we do report sales in North America for SoundScan, and we do connect through PayPal for those sales. The technical side of that and how that all works, I am the wrong guy to ask, unfortunately. That was probably I could find out. It was our developers who put that system together, but it definitely is possible because we've been reporting the SoundScan now for a few years, and all of our payment processing is done through PayPal. Through our e-commerce features, which are obviously, part of the website design, and then for the actual processing, you do it through PayPal, and then you get the downloads, or the person sends the CD or what have you, and then every week we send the sales reports to SoundScan. So it is definitely possible. With the technical aspects of how to do that, let's say if you're doing it through like a WordPress custom WordPress site, I'm not 100% certain.
Okay, well then I am aking, AKING, at NOR.com. If you're still after more information, just shoot me a message and we can look into that. Here we go. Someone's asked about books or articles to read. So if I can shamelessly promote, at the end of the session, Penny, we're going to have 3 titles, 3 books that have some complimentary info to what we're talking about here. As far as articles, if you check out the handout section of your webinar interface, we've got a few over the years that don't exactly pertain to this topic, but are complimentary, talking about your overall digital marketing strategy, your online presence, etc. But with that, Dave, do you have any favorite titles that you can recommend to people along this line?
Uh, Definitely, and again, I apologize for the self-promotional aspect of it. My main role at Bandzoogle has been for the last 6 years, artist education, and so Bandzoogle's blog, every week we publish 3 to 4 articles, not only on website best practices, but general marketing advice or artist career advice, that kind of thing. But we have a bunch of free ebooks on the blog. We just launched a new one called A Complete Guide to SEO for Musicians. It's a 130-page free ebook all about SEO. There's one, it's a step-by-step guide, how to build a website for musicians. Again, very general advice. You don't have to be using Bandzoogle. It's just overall best practices. So there's a bunch of free downloads on the blog. Besides the blog post, there are some actual ebooks that you can download totally for free, and will help you out with your online presence.
Okay, I've got a Bandzoogle specific question, which I guess I'll save for the end here. And remember, there are a few questions in the queue just popping in now. Rest assured, we'll get those answered and in front of Dave very, very shortly. But one more, and then we'll truck on here. Yeah, for WordPress sites, and I'm not sure if you have an opinion, but would you recommend acquiring data analytics via the server backend or via inside WordPress's template and plug in inside WordPress as opposed to direct hosting statistics, cPanel statistics?
I honestly do not have an opinion, mostly because I don't know enough of the technical aspects of how that would work. We plug in Google Analytics, and then we add in some data on top of that, but I'm not quite sure the difference is there for a WordPress site. I apologize. I think as long as you can set it up easily and have access to, and will forever have access to, that it's not something that you have to pay to keep getting access to. Like something like Google Analytics, where you can create an account and you'll always have access to that data. Then if it's easily accessible, then whichever way works best for you. But unfortunately, I don't know enough about those two different ways of handling it with WordPress.
Well, okay. Yeah, I know it's not the greatest help just to say Google, but knowing how robust Google Analytics platform is, and that it can be plugged into a number of different platforms and services, I think even just Googling WordPress Analytics versus others, you probably get a lot of good peer reviews and could kind of crowdsource information on that, which might be the best for folks that have used and have experience with. Using a few of these different tools. But again, aking@nor.com, we will get you helped out. Okay, so let's carry on here. And now we're going to talk about the actual site. So I guess we're kind of starting at square one. We've set the stage very nicely. Appreciate all of your insight, Dave. Let's talk about the site, the assets that you want to have included.
Yeah, so if you're getting ready to build a new website, or even if you already have a website, like these are kind of the main components. If you, I like to tell people it's not the official company slogan of Bandzoogle, but I tell people Bandzoogle's so easy your drummer could do it, which is true because I'm a drummer. But you really have to have some things in place before you build a website, and those things are, your official bio, which should be written, in the third person, maybe a few different versions of it, short, medium, long, elevator pitch, that kind of thing. Professional photos, cannot stress this enough. We tell musicians that they should invest more money in photos than they do in their website. And the reason for that is that you're going to use those photos on your website, in your press kit, on your social media profiles. So the difference between landing on a website that has professional photos and one that doesn't, I mean, it's night and day. And the unfortunate reality is that people are going to judge your music based on the visuals that they immediately see, whether it's conscious or unconscious, subconscious. They're going to make a judgment on your music based on the visuals. So if your visuals are grainy and poorly cropped and unprofessional, they're going to think the same about your music before ever hitting play on a music player. So professional photos, super important. Obviously, you need some music put up there, your videos, upcoming dates, social links, and contact information. So that'll give you the bulk of the content you need to build a site that'll address, a lot of those people, the three different categories of people that will be visiting your website.
Bingo. And that's not to say you have to limit it to this, although as we'll talk about in a sec, you definitely don't want to throw too much at it. Spartan and simple is key. But yeah, if you've got one or two, say a charity or campaign or something like that you want to add in here, probably makes a lot of sense. But yeah, design tips. So we were just talking a bit about professional photography, and you hit the nail on the head. That's something that can be very off-putting. First impressions. There's a ton of adages about that, and they apply very directly to your .com here. But yeah, photos, colors, typography, and fonts. Walk us through this.
Yeah, so photos, I already gave my little rant on the importance of professional photos because, you're going to use that for your header, background images, promo photos, social media press kit, all that stuff. So in terms of color, so if you're designing it yourself, it's probably good to stick to three colors as a general rule. There are, of course, going to be exceptions. But generally speaking, unless you're doing children's music, you don't want to have like 15 colors on your website. You want to try to focus it so that it looks cohesive. So you're going to have a primary color, maybe that is a color from your logo if you have one, a secondary color, and then a third accent color that complements one of the first two colors. So think about the background colors, the link colors, the header text colors, things like that. So it all has to look cohesive to look like a professional website. So sticking to three colors, you're probably going to be doing okay. Again, you can play off of shades of that, but generally speaking, if you stick to three colors, you're going to be doing okay. In terms of typography, I'll give an example. I mean, I did a website review for a metal band that had Comic Sans as the body text that was colored purple, yellow, red. Like, it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I was like, guys, you play like really dark, heavy music. Like, your website is screaming like bubbly children's fun music.
Oh,
So you
I
really,
was seeing GeoCities and getting it back.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Or it looks like GeoCities. So, avoiding, if you're not sure, just people often pick, and I'm picking on Comic Sans because it's the easy thing to do, but there are other fonts like that that are just kind of, they look kind of designy, like they look a bit different. But really, if you're not sure, and you can of course Google, font best practices, and just pick some good quality classic fonts, and you generally can't go wrong. But you can go very wrong by picking, some of the other ones. Making sure that there's good contrast with the background. So I come across so many websites where there's, light gray text on a dark background, and it's impossible to read the content in the bio and the blog post and things like that. And things like center justification, bold, italics, you want to keep that to a minimum. Center justification is one that I see a lot for body text. And the reality is that it's actually harder to read because your eye has to keep trying to find the beginning of the sentence again. Where it does work for quick one-line reviews or press quotes, that's great. Same thing with bold and italics, but you don't want to have too much of it because it'll just kind of distract. And of course, avoiding all caps for body text because it's just going to seem like you're shouting at people.
Yeah. Oh, I can't think of the name and pull it up, but to Comic Sans, I would add that just totally overdone bleeding cowboy or the cowboy one with like.
That's the one I was trying to think of. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh man, I see that everywhere, and oh, you're tying yourself to a weight and jumping into the lake with that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not that serious. Okay, let's roll. And this is a very important one that I know you are going to want to stress. So mobile friendly, and I guess almost self-explanatory, but please.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point everyone knows how important it is to have a mobile-friendly website. But digital media time is now higher on mobile devices than on desktop. That's a very sort of recent occurrence, and so the mobile experience has to be seamless. Like, and to know a very quick way to know if your website is mobile-friendly is if you're looking at your website on a phone. If you have to pinch and zoom, your website's not mobile-friendly. So the content has to be easy to find. It has to be easy to navigate. If you're selling, any kind of e-commerce has to work seamlessly. And the reality is now Google boosts mobile-friendly pages and will actually punish pages that aren't mobile-friendly if someone's doing a search in a mobile device. And you can go to google.com, their webmaster tools. You can plug in your URL, and they'll give you an assessment of how mobile-friendly your website is. So it's a good idea to just check it out. But again, a quick test is if you have to do any kind of pinch and zoom on your website on a mobile device, it is not mobile friendly. You should probably switch your template or design or platform that you're using to make sure that that it's a responsive mobile friendly design.
Mhm. Bam. That bolded URL at the bottom again, where you can test that. And a great time is any to mention a recording of this session will be sent out to everybody that registered, including the attendees here, so that you can access this at your convenience when needed at any point from here on out. But also to say that in the handout section, there is a notepad style breakdown of this particular slideshow where you can grab that. So, well, if you were writing it down, you're probably done by now, but save you a bit of writing. Yeah, there's some great questions coming in here, which we'll be getting to shortly, but let's keep rolling here. We're talking about the look. Let's talk about the experience, navigation experience.
Yeah, so it's important to make navigation as easy as possible. And you should probably limit your main menu to maybe 8 sections. It can be a little bit less than that, but not much more than that, because if you have like a dozen or 15 different main menu sections, chances are you're overwhelming people and they're not really going to know where to click. And each section should have one clear purpose. So your music page shouldn't also have your bio. Your shows page shouldn't have all your videos at the bottom, that kind of thing. So every section should have one clear purpose, and it's super important to keep the name simple. We often say that your music is your art, your website is your business, and so leave the creativity aside when you're naming your main menu items, because we come across main menu pages called like discover or explore and or something totally unique, and the reality is everyone has ADD these days with social media. If they land on your website and they want to find your upcoming shows, make sure that they can very quickly find your upcoming shows. So that's the idea.
Spot on. Geez, we're rolling on here, which I guess is good because we have a ton of really good questions in the queue. Um, and yeah, I guess we can break. I guess we chatted about these earlier,
Yeah.
but did we? I guess got into detail too. So as far as like your sitemap itself and basically just the tabs as to where people can go from the main page. Again, this is kind of a good general starting point, and you can interchange some things that are relevant or unique to you with this, but all kind of going with Dave's point of keeping it simple, drive people's attention where you want it. Don't go overboard. Is there anything to add on these points?
Yeah, like you said, you can take away some of these, maybe add like you can add Prescott to that and combine music and store if you want to have everything in one place, or photos and videos into like a media section, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, these are going to hit all the points that someone would be visiting your website for.
Brilliant. Okay. Wow, that kind of sailed by, but it is all good because like I say, well, I keep saying we've got some great questions, and I'm always impressed to the folks, especially the regular attendees. I'm seeing some familiar names here. We very much appreciate you coming and just keeping the caliber of interaction very, very high. Uh, so again, we got to disclose here that Dave is with bandzoogle.com, which is a service that offers website and retail solutions and email solutions for bands, for musicians and artists. And so I say that just so that, we try to keep it agnostic. Bandzoogle.com, check it out. But some of these questions, we might just kind of have to dance around that a bit. But yeah, someone's asking about if you can objectively, and that's my word, not theirs, but share some
Mhm.
pros and cons to using free sites like Wix versus, well, a lot of the other options available. I guess if we can boil that down, sometimes free is all someone can afford. What are the pros and cons of going that route?
Yeah, so Wix has a free plan. Like they're one of our big competitors out there. I mean, we're very different companies. We're 100% focused on musicians and bands, and Wix is kind of a website platform for anyone that wants to build a website. And they have a free tier, which I understand sometimes. You don't have the resources to invest in a website. The issue with a free platform, a free tier of platform like that, like Wix, is they're going to just place ads for Wix all over it. And so when someone's coming to your website, I mean, it's going to, as a starting point, maybe, but once you start getting professionals and bookers and media coming to your website, and they land on a website that's plastered with Wix ads, and it maybe doesn't have a custom domain, it's like a wix.com slash or your band name.wix.com, that kind of thing. It kind of brings the sort of professionalism level down a little bit. That's probably the biggest knock against using a free service like that.
Mm-hmm. And then actually, I can say too, I'm not sure if this is for Wix, but with a lot of these providers, the free tier doesn't come with a clean bandname.com. There's often some extra characters in that URL. And even that alone is something that, it's not going to be a deal breaker in a lot of cases, but you want to put your best foot forward. You want to be professional. You're competing with more artists and sites than ever before, and that's pretty much going up daily. So, yeah, you want to capitalize on any edge you can. And, well, yeah, if we
Yeah. And
go, oh, sorry, go for
sorry, one more point on that is in terms of search engine, like SEO could be a complete, obviously its own webinar, search engine optimization. But in
it.
terms of SEO, Google wants to know where like your main hub online is, and so you really need a custom domain primarily for that reason as well. Like Google wants to know, okay, you're this band, fine. What's your main hub online? And they want that to be your own .com, not a platform name .yourband.com. that kind of thing. So it's important for SEO considerations as well.
Oh, spot on. Yeah, there's quite a few questions here about money.
Mhm.
And so again, like I know you can speak very well to bandzoogle.com. And that's not a, I guess, not a bad thing just for comparative here. But a few folks are asking about kind of average price that you should expect to pay. Uh, and I guess we can kind of break that down, like just to basic hosting, what it might cost, or even a ballpark to have someone design and host your site all in one versus a package like Bandzoogle targeted with widgets for musicians specifically. Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown? And I should quote Ian here too. I guess I'm just going to add on to the question and complicate it a bit, but they all kind of ride together. Yeah, there's a gentleman here that's paid close to $20 a month since 2007 for his present website, and he's just not getting anything out of it. Is it possible to transfer that site or even just the .com address and take advantage of a service like Bandzoogle?
Yeah, so I'll address that first because it's very quick.
Thank you.
Definitely. If you have a website, you already have your own custom domain. We include one in all the plans, and we manage those, and you own them, but we renew them every year for you. But if you already have a .com, you can build a website during the free trial, and then when you're ready, you can point your custom domain over to our servers. That's not an issue whatsoever. To the initial question of a comparison of costs, I mean, it varies widely, as you can imagine. Like, you can find hosting for dirt cheap. There's no question. You can find hosting for a couple bucks a month. You could slap together a free WordPress template. If you kind of know what you're doing, you can do some custom code. You can build a website for relatively cheap. You're going to have to find widgets to do the e-commerce and the mailing list and gig dates and all those other things. Like, there's a patchwork of things that you can put together and for it to be super low cost. There's no question. Um, where services like Bandzoogle and others that offer similar services come in is it's all in one place. So your design, you can change the design instantly. It's all mobile friendly. You get your hosting, and we use Amazon's web services, so the hosting's super quick, super reliable. So we don't use cheap hosting, and many of our competitors are the same way. They use top line hosting, and then you get your e-commerce, your mailing list all in one place. And so you're going to pay anywhere from 10, 15 to 20 bucks a month for a service like Bandzoogle. But then you get your 7-day-a-week support included. So it depends on your level of comfort with tinkering and how much time you have. If you want to try to customize a WordPress template and embed all these widgets, if you know your way around, your hosting and setting up email and that kind of thing, then yeah, there's definitely a way to do that on the cheap. And if you're going to hire a designer to customize, let's say, a WordPress template, that can range, depending on what you need, that can range anywhere from $500 to $5,000 to more than that, depending on what you want to do with your site. But I'd say between 5 and 2,000, sort of as a minimum of getting a designer involved to custom code and brand a website. That would probably be what it would cost.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks a ton for that. Yeah, there's probably 4 or 5 questions, I think, all basically going for the same thing. So appreciate your insight. Here's a great one. What are some tips for avoiding cart abandonment, which is a pretty big issue for a lot of e-retailers?
Cart abandonment. So that would be when someone adds something to the cart and then leaves the site. Is that?
Yeah, so if someone's on your site and like Bandzoogle offers e-commerce
Mhm.
tools, it would be, yeah, that stage where someone's purchasing something, they've added it to their cart, and at some point between adding items, especially multi-items is a big one,
Mhm.
but where at some point between choosing those items and not hitting okay on the credit card information. Is that something that you guys have even looked at much internally? Because I know there are a lot of kind of general stats and statistics and tips about that you can find online. But here we are, with the service provider specific to the music industry. Yeah, is that something that that you folks have looked at all?
To be honest, not really, because often when someone's going onto a musician's website, I mean, it's the very direct purpose. And if they decide to buy something, it's usually a very quick transaction. Whereas, if you're on a e-commerce site like Amazon or something like that, you can get kind of lost in the in the weeds a bit and then forget about it. And we don't. I don't have any data at my fingertips to know how much of an issue that may or may not be for them. And we have over 30,000 musicians that use the platform. So I'm not sure how much of an issue it is. I would imagine it does come up, but that kind of goes back to the importance of getting as many people who visit your website onto your mailing list, because if they do forget, then they'll hopefully get an email from you within a month or two, just reminding people about your music and merch and that kind of thing. But in terms of technically how do we address that issue, I honestly don't know. It's one of the first times I've in 6 years working with Benzigo. It's the first time that question has been raised. But maybe as musicians become more savvy and are doing more direct to fan commerce, it may be becoming more of a concern.
Oh, right on. And actually, yeah, and you made a great point too. That cart abandonment is I guess more talked about, at least for sites like Amazon, where people are essentially coming to shop slash browse. Where, like you say, a musician's web store, very often people kind of know what's there already and would be coming with a purpose. Um, Here, let's keep rolling here. Uh, Now, this is an interesting one, and I guess more opinion based than anything. But if you perform as a solo artist as well as part of a band, are there advantages to having a single site as opposed to multiple sites for each different project, just apart from the individual costs?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that comes up quite a bit. Um, so my personal opinion is that it's not absolutely necessary to have separate websites. It really depends what your focus is. That being said, for SEO and to keep things kind of separate, um, having separate websites is probably a good idea. It depends on your budget, of course, and if you want to invest in that. And you can definitely connect the multiple sites. And I come across a lot of musicians who also do production, and they're producers and also solo artists, or they teach and also do original music. And or play in cover bands, and how do you separate those entities? And the clearest way is to have separate websites. And if you're going to go with a single website, my only advice would be that whatever your primary focus is, whatever you focus the most of your time and attention on, make that the primary focus of your website, and make sure that there's a section for the other thing that you do, whether it's teaching, whether it's a solo project or a cover band or whatever. Um, so it's really that was my personal opinion, but it really, unfortunately, it's a bit of a cop out. But I always throw it back to the artist asking the question, saying like it's a matter of personal preference and how you want to sort of divide your career, so to speak, or not. So it's really I don't think there's really a best practice, like you have to have separate websites or you have to have a single website. I think it really comes down to time, resources, budget, and how you want to kind of manage those entities online.
Oh, right on. Yeah, and I should say too, we've had some great questions. Dave, I appreciate you humoring us too with some of the more kind of technical slash back end questions. Our intent was to look more so at the design elements and kind of the front facing user experience of your website, um, more so versus things like analytics and your web store and whatnot. But I appreciate you playing ball. And
You appreciate me dancing around and not being able to answer the questions.
oh, no, it's all good. We plenty of sources of info, and we kind of settled into a niche. But no, we're being helpful. And there's been some great feedback. Ed, I really appreciate you always joining us and the kind words there. Um, Yeah, so here's one. Now, what's the difference between what a service like Bandzoogle offers compared to, say, CD Baby that seems to gather your income from various sales platforms?
Yeah, so what CD Baby does is, there's the main thing that CD Baby does is similar to like TuneCore or DistroKid. Or there's other platforms out there that they're digital distributors. So you upload your music with the intent on getting it made available on iTunes and Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon and all those online stores and streaming platforms. So you can use CD Baby for that, or again those other platforms. Whereas Bandzoogle, we don't offer digital distribution. We're really there to power your website from behind the scenes and give you tools for your e-commerce to be able to sell music, merch, and tickets directly to your fans. So we don't send that music to online retailers like CD Baby does.
Okay, awesome. And that's it. Unless anyone's got a last question here, yeah, we've got a bit of Dave's time, so we'll keep that open for about 20 seconds. There is one more. Penny has a question specific to a tool in Bandzoogle. So, Dave, do you mind if I connect you with her after the fact and
Yep,
yeah,
no
we
problem.
get that taken care of? Yeah, no, we very much appreciate everyone joining us. Again, Dave Cool, bandzoogle.com, Director of Artist and Industry Outreach. Do check out the site, do check out the service and some of the solutions that they can offer, because again, it borrows very much from what we've been talking about here. Yeah, we've got a few titles for you. musicbooksplus.com/websites. And there's some tips as well to make the most of your next webinar experience, which again, capitalizing on music conferences coming up late March. Start promoting that very shortly. And Dave, appreciate it very much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. We appreciate it. And yeah, a recording, as I mentioned, will go out in an email about 24 hours from now. nwcwebinars.com, the home base to access this and, well, all of our future sessions as well. And Penny, I will make sure that Dave gets your email address for your question specific to Bandzoogle. Okay, wait, we've got one more, and this is a good one, Stuart. Dave, any coupon codes for Bandzoogle?
Uh, that's a great question. I can say that there's not a general one that I can give out this evening, but I would say that if you are a member of SOCAN or have attended any music conferences, there are generally some promo codes. If you get in touch with Andrew, he can give you my email address, and I can we can figure it out.
Bingo. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us back next month and the month after that. nwcwebinars.com. Dave Cool from Bandzoogle, and I'm Andrew King with Canadian Musician, and well, we appreciate you taking part.